Audio quality for your streaming microphone is arguably the most important aspect of your stream. It will be the first factor in determining whether a viewer stays or goes. They will hear you within a few seconds and determine whether they need to continue to view or just leave. So it is important that you properly set your microphone so that you have the best sound possible at the start. I'm going to share with you 3 things that you need to know for any microphone to make them sound as they were intended by their designers. And the great thing is, well, this applies to any microphone you own, even cheap headset mics. So let's get into the video. All right, so let's talk about placement. That is the first thing you need to know about microphones and how to properly place your microphone. First of all, this is often overlooked. People consider, well, you know, they come with this little desktop stand. That's how they're designed to be used. When in actuality, they're really not. Check 1 2. Hey, 1 2 1 2 1 2. So first thing you really need to understand is what type of microphone you have and how do you address it properly. So I've got a couple different ones here. First of all, you're seeing what is considered a front address microphone. This is the Avra Media Versati Go. And to talk in it properly, you need to talk directly into the front of it like this as it's pointing at you. Now this microphone, this is a Rode XCM50. This is another condenser type microphone, but this is a front address microphone. So here, instead of talking into it like this, you would actually talk into it like this in front. Typically these style microphones, these side address microphones will have the logo right here. And that'll kind of tell you where you need to have this aimed. Whereas these front address microphones, the logo will be parallel with the microphone, and typically it'll have this style of mesh on the front that'll tell you where you need to aim it at. So these are the 2 main styles that you will have for your broadcast. You could also have one that has multiple polar patterns where it's front and back, or an omnidirectional where you can put it around and it'll pick up anything 360 degrees. So the figure 8 polar pattern is quite common for some microphones that are used for podcasting, as well as omnidirectional. For the most part, you will be dealing with what they call a cardioid or a supercardioid polar pattern, mostly cardioid for these style of broadcast microphones, and they have one direction that they point. So you have to make sure that you get that right, or else you're not going to sound right. All right, the second thing we need to talk about is proper distance. So what is proper distance? Well, it depends on the type of microphone that you have. This is a condenser microphone that I'm currently using, and generally speaking, they have a higher sensitivity than a dynamic microphone. So you can get away with them being a little bit further away compared to a dynamic. A dynamic, because they have such higher sensitivity, is they need to be right on top of you. Now, for instance, I have a Rode Pod mic, and for me to talk into it, I need to be a lot closer to it to get the same level that I would from this condenser mic, being, you know, a good 3 or 4 more inches away than what this would be if I'm talking into it. For these dynamic microphones, I really like to be as close as possible to them. So you got to keep that in mind. These condenser microphones, you can actually back away from these pretty good, and you still get decent level out of these compared to a dynamic microphone, which me backing away even a couple inches really changes the output level of the microphone. So you got to keep that in mind. So generally speaking, you want to have these about anywhere from 4 to 10 inches, and this is about as far away as I would go. And typically that's how you do it. You would take the tip of your thumb to the tip of your index finger, and you would put that on the front of the microphone to your mouth, and that's about where you would want to be max. Also, find a comfortable space in there. Now, something you do need to consider also with condenser microphones, or microphones in general, is if their SPL is rather low, you don't really need to be right on top of these things and talking at a normal level, because you will start to distort the microphone. Generally speaking, about 4 inches is really good, and if you're this far away like this and you can put your finger and, you know, your hand like that in between, you're typically fine and you'll be okay. Another thing that's going to help you with placement is using a mic arm. Now, I've got a couple different mic arms here. Currently, I'm using a low profile mic arm. They do have some options for microphone arms. This is really how I think you should go when you're going to be using a microphone. You do have these low profile type mic arms. This is the Elgato mic arm LP Pro. You do have this one. This is a Mayano low profile mic arm. You also have standard boom arms, which you can kind of see right here that I've actually had my camera on. And you also have some of these desk mount ones. Now this is a new one from Elgato. This is the Elgato desk mount, and you can see it does have functionality in it, and you can get the microphone, you know, rather close to you, and that would be perfect for, say, something like a podcast, or even the monopod that Elgato came out with a while back that you can use, that even has a slot here for a pad or something if you were wanting to do a commentary or use this for a podcast also. So there are options out there for microphones that you can use for these situations, but I definitely recommend for streamers mainly and for gamers. You know, if you're going to be live streaming on Twitch, get you a mic arm. They're relatively cheap, and you can get really good quality ones for less than $100 now. Matter of fact, Elgato's regular version of their mic arm LP will be on a Black Friday sale here soon, and you'll be able to get that for under $70, and that's a really good buy for a good mic arm like that. All right, last thing we'll talk about is gain. Now, gain is pretty important because if you don't have your gain set properly, then you're going to be so low that you're going to have to add additional gain in the back end or in post-processing if you're making videos to get the level up to where a viewer can hear it. Or two, if you have the gain set so high, it's going to be really loud. You're going to introduce a lot of noise into your microphone that you don't want to do, whether it be background noise or even your noise floor because of your preamp. So it's very important that you get the gain set right. Now, typically for USB microphones, it's pretty easy to set up. There's a couple ways that you can do it. And so I'll talk about the first way. And with this microphone here, this microphone has no way of adjusting gain on the microphone itself. So what you would use is you would actually use the Windows volume inside of Windows for the source for the microphone itself and change the volume that way. Some microphones have gain settings on their microphone themselves where you can then change those over. This Mayano PD400X has built-in gain, and it gives you an RGB or LEDs on here to see where your gain is set. It's a really nice feature, and a lot of these USB microphones do come with this control now. Another one that I can think of is the Fifine Amplitank Tank 3. Also has gain control directly on the microphone. You'll see that a lot of these dual microphones that are USB and XLR will have these gains. If it's a standard USB, then typically they're controlled in Windows or accompanying software that they may come with, such as the Beacon mic, for instance, is one that comes to mind, or Elgato's Wave microphones that you can control through their companion software. But for something like this microphone, typically it's Windows that controls it. And how I do that is I go into Windows and I bring the level up for the microphone until I'm reach about a -18 on the level meter. 1 2 1 2 check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 check 1 2. And typically what that is just where the green is going into the yellow. And that is really what you're trying to achieve. For an XLR microphone, it's kind of typically the same way, but the thing about XLR microphones is you're going to have an interface of some sort to get this to work because it needs a preamp to be able to work properly. So if you have a mixer such as the Rodecaster Duo, or an interface such as the Wave XLR, or say a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 or something like that, then you would need to adjust the gain on that interface to be able to get it set properly. And typically you're trying to achieve the same thing, about a -18, or where the green meets the yellow inside of OBS. Now, to keep that in mind, the sensitivity of your microphone plays heavily into that. And you need to pay attention to that when you're buying a microphone, especially if you're buying an XLR microphone and you have an interface already. You need to understand what sensitivity you're looking for. An older, say, Focusrite 2i2, for instance, has the preamps only go up to about, I would say, 56 to 60 dB. Well, the sensitivity of this Pod mic, for instance, requires you to have a preamp that gives you at least 63 dB to be able to achieve that minus 18. So typically, if you're going to get something like the pod mic, you're going to need to find an interface that produces at least 70 dB gain to give you enough headroom without introducing the noise floor from the preamp itself into your microphone. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the setup. But for most USB microphones, especially condenser microphones like this, they'll have enough gain. You really don't need much. For instance, to achieve minus 18 dB with this microphone, you really only need to bring the gain up to 44 dB to be able to achieve that. Very easy to do. And this will give you plenty of headroom without introducing noise floor. So keep that in mind. I cannot emphasize enough that following these key factors in microphone setup will set you up for providing a pleasant listening experience for your viewers or listeners. It will also set you up with proper beginning gain in the event that you want to add additional processing down the chain. Now, if you're interested in making your microphone sound even better using things like compression, EQ, or limiting, pay attention to this video right here and click on it and take a watch.